Hey guys. Okay, so in case you've been hiding under a rock recently, the industry at the moment is going absolutely bananas. Like, it is completely bonkers out there. So much so that unfortunately we had to make the tough decision to start turning away any new developer work. So by that I mean subdivisions, units, townhouses for clients that we aren't already connected with. Why? Well, two key reasons. Number one, the timeframes were slipping for our existing really good and long-standing sort of clients, and that was really bugging me. Also, number two, we found that we just didn't have any capacity to take on those jobs that we really wanted to take on. So I personally love working with building designers on house renos and new houses, that sort of stuff. And I just didn't have the clear headspace to be able to take on those opportunities. Anyway, B approached me last week in our team meeting, and she basically said that she was really struggling with referring these clients. Like, she felt like she was just dumping and running, and that just wasn't sitting right with her. So I sat there and went, okay, how can I help her? How can I give her something more so that she doesn't walk away feeling like she's given secondhand sort of customer service? Anyway, at the same time, I also had a conversation with the person that we do refer these jobs to. And I said to him, okay, what can I do to improve this referral process for you? Because it's in our interest to ensure that we keep this door open. Because B is going to absolutely kill me if you guys turn around and say, no, we don't have the capacity or don't have the ability, let's just say, to take on these jobs. So it's in my interest to keep that process running as smoothly as possible. So this video idea was born through those two things. I thought, hey, two birds, one stone, let's just talk about development sites. Let me run through the top 5 tips that I have. Well, no, actually, let's rephrase that. The 5 things that I think you guys need to look into. And I might throw a few tips at the end there. The aim being to try and help you DIY, self-serve to a certain extent before you reach out to a town planner. So that way, B can give you guys this video link. You can start to do a bit more research. She doesn't feel like she's just palming you off. And also you can kind of qualify yourselves before you reach out to any person that we refer you on to. So with the scene set, let's launch into my 5 things. Number 1, first and foremost, you need to check the zoning and the site area. So each and every local government across Queensland has very different rules for what you can and can't do. Within Brisbane, those rules are tied to the zones. So you need to look up the property on interactive mapping, and I will include a link below this video. Let me get my terminology right there. Below this video on how to use the interactive mapping process. But you need to go into that interactive mapping program. You need to look up the site. You need to find the property report. You need to work out what zone the property is in, and then you need to actually confirm what the site area is. Then you get those 2 pieces of information and you cross-check them against the table which specifies what you can and can't do in each zone. Now I am going to, when I edit this video to include the captions, I'm going to put a nice little screenshot of that table. So hit pause on this video, take a screenshot, a photo, whatever you want to do, and use that as your reference point. Now, what you'll find is, let's just throw an example out there. If you're looking at low density residential zone, you cannot do units, townhouses, duplexes, any of those things. If you're looking at, let's say, a CR1 zone, character residential 1 zone, you need at least 900 square metres and 30 metres of frontage. Or, there's a couple of different alternatives you can have there. But basically, you need a really large land size before you can start looking at subdivision. And again, units, townhouses, duplexes, they're not allowed. So you need to look at this table. You need to ask yourself, am I in the right zone for that use that I'm proposing? And do I have the right site area, dimensions in terms of frontage, width, all that sort of stuff to tick the boxes? Now, I would suggest that these rules that I'm going to flash up on the screen, it's going to cover maybe 95, maybe even a bit more of percentage of situations. So you will get a very, and I mean very small number of situations where you can, for lack of a better term, break these rules. But it covers, like I suggested, 95%, a majority of the situations out there. So that's the very first step. Next warning I want to put out there, services. We see this kill jobs on a daily basis. So most importantly is probably going to be stormwater. You want to make sure that you have what's called a lawful point of discharge. So you want to make sure that your site is either draining down via gravity to the street, so to the curb and channel within the road frontage, or that you have a connection to a pipe that you can just tap into. What we find more often than not, if your property slopes away from the street in a sort of significant form, you can't fill it to get it drained down to your frontage, and you typically don't have any pipes running through the rear of your property that you can tap into. If you do, they're usually undersized or in bad sort of shape. They've got roots going through them, all that sort of stuff. So, man, I'm talking fast here. I've got so much information to get across. Okay, so then what you end up having to do is getting the downstream owner's consent. So the neighbour at the rear or the side or wherever it may be, you need their consent to go through their property to tap into the lines within their property or to go to their curb and channel. I can tell you now, most people out there are NIMBYs, not in my backyards. So everyone's happy for development to happen across the city, just not next door to them. As a result, we probably find over half the time, if not a lot more, people refuse to give you consent to connect to their stormwater lines or sewer lines or whatever it is because they don't want subdivisions or units or whatever you're proposing happening next door. So do not underestimate that. I've literally had 3 jobs this week that have fallen over. One, she'd gone through so much work in terms of surveying and all that sort of stuff because the services didn't stack up. So the one example that I've got in my mind, fresh in my mind, she had the consent of the rear neighbour, which is super, super hard to get, like I suggested before, but she had that consent to tap into their line. So she was going through all the rest of her due diligence stuff, ticking off every other box, and then she found out that the rear neighbour was selling. They'd put their property on the market. Suddenly the consent she had was worthless because there's no way she could act on it within any sort of quick time frames. So, moral of the story, have a chat to a civil engineer and make sure you really, really appreciate the complexities that are associated with trying to tap into the existing services. It can literally be a make or break issue. Now, point number 3, protected houses. So if you go into the interactive mapping, look up the property report and you see that it's traditional building character overlay, and if you turn on the 1946 aerial photo and you see it was built before 1947, then it's protected. There is a few other scenarios where it can be protected, but let's just keep things nice and simple for today. And let's just say TBC plus pre-47 equals protected means that the house needs to be retained as part of the development. Now, generally speaking, older houses, they have a much bigger footprint than what modern units do because they were single-story elevated things as opposed to double-story squished up little things. So you find if you've got to work around retaining that house, it will reduce the yield of what you can get on that property in terms of the townhouses at the rear. It can also have impacts in terms of access. So you won't be able to necessarily get a driveway down the side to be able to access those new townhouses. Yes, you can sometimes move the house over. Yes, sometimes you can get approval to reduce the 3.5 metre access width requirement down to, let's say, 3 metres. But don't bank on that. The other scenario everyone always throws at us is, oh, okay, I'll raise the house up and I'll have the driveway coming under the house, either partially or entirely. You've got fire rating issues then with the underside of the house, which is always cost prohibitive. It's just painful. So don't underestimate the pain, let's just say, that protected houses can cause when it comes to redeveloping sites. Okay, so we've done zoning, services, character. Next one I wanted to talk about was flooding. So overland flow at the moment, for whatever reason, seems to be coming up on so many jobs. So again, interactive mapping report. If you've got flooding of any type, turn on the mapping so that you can actually see how much of the property it affects. If it's overland flow and if it's affecting more than 300 square metres of, well, no, let me keep this really, really simple for now. And I'm going to say if you can't get 300 square metres per lot of dry land, so land that's not affected by the flood overlay, then you're going to have a significantly reduced chance of success when it comes to lodging that application. Different categories of flooding have different amounts of fill you can do to get that flood-free access, but as a super crude, simple sort of rule to keep in mind, if it's mapped overland flow path, you're probably not going to be able to do any real fill within that area because the flow paths typically are really, really narrow. If it's Brisbane River, different story. You can do a bit more fill there without impacting because obviously the Brisbane River corridor is huge. But yeah, for simplicity's sake for today, let's just say 300 square metres per lot or per, let's just stick to lot of dry land, and don't assume you can fill if it's within a mapped overland flow path to achieve that dry land. Okay, what was my fifth thing? Manoeuvring. Okay, so you need to be able to, let me think about how I'm going to talk about this one. You need to make sure you can enter a site in a forward gear, turn around within 3 turns, and then exit in a forward gear when it comes to dual occupancy, townhouses, all of that sort of stuff. So, oh, my phone looks like it might be about to die. It might be overheating. Let's just see what happens here. If not, I might have to restart or continue this video another time. But yeah, enter in a forward gear, 3 turns, exit in a forward gear. If you've got a 10-metre wide block, you're not going to get that manoeuvring to work. I can tell you now. The other thing is you need to then account for the parking bays. Now, off the top of my head, I can't remember what the parking rates are because they've just changed recently, but council has increased the number of parking bays you need on a development site. So those two things, the manoeuvring and the minimum parking requirements, we're finding at the moment they are significantly compromising, let's just say, the feasibility when it comes to doing units, townhouses, all of that sort of stuff. So that is a super fast run through of the 5 key things I think you need to check before you reach out to a town planner. 2 tips I want to throw at you quickly now. Let me see if I can remember what they were. As I was running this morning, I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Got to make sure I get that across. When I say running, shuffling, I don't run. Okay, so the first thing is industry at the moment, absolutely bonkers. I mentioned it before, bananas, crazy, whatever word you want to throw at it there. Every town planner, every civil engineer, every ecologist, every consultant you can come across, they are really, really stretched. So if they're going to give up their time to help you, they're giving up the opportunity to do other paid work. They're giving up the opportunity to hang out with their friends, their family, whatever, or they're missing up or giving up the opportunity to catch up on some sleep. So you need to build a relationship with that town planner or that consultant, whoever it is, to make it worth their while to actually give up that time or that other stuff to talk to you. I'm going to suggest, I don't know, let's throw a figure out there, less than 10%, I'm making this up on the spot, less than 10% of initial inquiries which come from people who are looking to potentially get into the development world and have just started looking on realestate.com ever eventuate into anything. There is just too much competition out there at the moment. Like, we will literally have multiple phone calls about each and every property that pops up on realestate.com. There's just so much outbidding that's going on out there, and there is so many things you've got to check before you can go ahead with the development. So we rarely see these inquiries go through to maturity. So like I said before, if the consultant you're talking to is really stretched at the moment and you're coming to them with something that they know is more than likely not going to go ahead, you're going to find it very hard to get in front of them to ask the questions you want. So you need to build that relationship with them. Obviously, one way to do that is to offer to compensate them for their time in terms of paying for their services. There's obviously other ways that you can build that relationship, but just keep that in mind. These people, like I said, every consultant across the industry is really stretched. So you need to find a way to get their attention to make them want to help you in that way. So that's the first thing. The second tip I wanted to tell you is no town planner can ever guarantee approval. If they do, there's something wrong with them. The reality is that council is the only one that has access to all of the information required to properly assess an application. I remember I used to work in council. When I left council, I said to my boss, oh, so where's the building card records? How do we access those? Or how do we get access to those transport notes? And he kind of looked at me and went, we don't have access to that stuff in the private world. And I went, how the heck am I supposed to do my job without that information? Like, that was a massive reality check. So yes, we in the private world can only go so far. Obviously, like I said, in my private world, I've done thousands and thousands of applications. So, and each town plan is going to be a similar sort of boat. We've done a bucket load of applications. As a result, we have a very, very good idea of what council will say in most scenarios. But there is always that slight chance that council may throw out some bit of information that we in the private world don't have access to, could not have reasonably considered. So there is always going to be risk involved in doing developments. Your aim here is to do as much research, ask as many questions as possible, and most importantly, build the team of consultants around you from day one so that you can try and reduce that risk. Try and minimize the number of surprises that can come up along the way. So please, please, please don't think it's just a case of, okay, I tick the zoning box, I can do a subdivision here, let's charge ahead and let's sort all the details out later. The best developers that we work with are the ones that are so happy to spend thousands of dollars on their due diligence in terms of getting the surveyors out there, doing the civil checks, all that sort of stuff, and then walk away from a project because they just see it doesn't quite stack up. You need to appreciate the importance of that initial stage. You need to put a lot of money and time into that initial stage because otherwise you're going to get bitten in the long run. Okay, I think that's as much as I can dump on you guys today. Like I said, the point of this whole video is to give you guys a resource to sort of build your own knowledge, DIY, I guess. Yeah, DIY the assessment process before you reach out to a town planner. That way B can sort of give you guys this video, and before we refer you to our other contacts, you've kind of done that checking process. So by the time you turn up at their doorstep, you're more of a qualified sort of person and they're more ready to help you and work with you, let's just say. Okay, mind dump over. As I always say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.